The one characteristic you're bound to notice very quickly when you cook with your Bertazzoni gas oven is that it's extremely powerful. Gas is a wonderful heat source because it's a very strong, lively heat, and it has a natural convection. Cooking with convection is a benefit to our cooking because there's moisture retention when we roast our meats or vegetables. Convection basically means that the heated air is circulated around the oven, but it does cook a little bit differently to traditional bake. When you're baking in your Bertazzoni gas oven, you have the option of using either the traditional bake mode or the convection bake mode. When you bake in regular bake, use the recipe temperature and use the mid-rack position. If you're baking in glass using the traditional recipe temperature, it's recommended to reduce that temperature by at least 20 degrees because glass transmits the heat even faster. An additional tip is when you're baking in your Bertazzoni oven, always check for doneness prior to the time recommended in the recipe. Because this oven is a powerful oven, you may find that it cooks food a little faster. Now, if you choose to bake in the convection bake mode, the benefit is you can bake on several racks at one time because the fan will be evenly distributing the heat around the oven. The key here is, first of all, rack position. When you're baking cookies, foods of a more delicate nature, make sure the lower rack is not in the lowest position. Save that position for when you're making your pizzas. When you bake several racks of cookies, always have the cookies on these rack positions a little higher up. 2 and 3 will be perfect. And now you must reduce recipe temperatures by 25 degrees. We need to reduce recipe temperatures when we bake with convection because the heated air that's circulating around the oven is cooking the food from the edge to the core. If the temperature is too high, we will overcook the edges and the center won't be done. When you're baking in an oven that doesn't have a readout of the actual oven temperature, you may be tempted to go and purchase an oven thermometer that will reassure you of the internal temperature. For a more accurate test, I would recommend that you purchase a packaged cornbread mix and bake it as per the package directions to gain confidence that the oven is actually cooking at the right temperature. The oven sensor is placed high up in the oven, and we very often place the oven thermometer in the middle of the oven, so the temperature reading will be different to the actual thermostat that is controlling the oven temperature. But once you see that things are cooking perfectly, it will give you the confidence to continue cooking and begin to appreciate the features of this range. Whether you use the traditional bake mode or the convection bake mode for roasting in this oven, you're assured to get great results. Why? Because gas has a natural convection, so the foods will retain moisture. The key for successful roasting in the oven is always place large cuts of meat, especially poultry, on a rack in a shallow pan. When the pan is shallow and the meat is exposed to the heated air can circulate around it and cook it from the edge to the core. Anytime you want to cook on multiple racks, it's best to choose the convection mode. That way the heat will be distributed more evenly. But always keep in mind that racks that are lower in the oven will be getting more direct heat from the burner in the bottom of the oven. Typically, I like to put my potatoes and vegetables down a little bit lower because I love the crispness that they attain from being cooked in this great oven. Whenever you're cooking on multiple racks, be sure to stage the oven prior to cooking to make sure everything fits in really well. This is a 36-inch range, and you can see I'm able to use a half-sheet pan going into the oven with a quarter-sheet pan or a jelly roll pan going the opposite direction, and I can still get more pans underneath. When it comes to broiling in your gas oven, always have your oven rack position in place first and determine how close the food will be to the broiler. The infrared gas broiler in this range is very powerful and gives wonderful results. The key to this broiler is the fact that you've got this powerful direct heat, but you've also got a lot of moisture retention from the ceramic brick of the infrared broiler. Whether you're broiling steak or fish or shrimp or vegetables, you'll find that the results will be absolutely superb. Broil with the door closed and watch the timing. Things happen very, very quickly. And if you are broiling cuts of meat that have a fair bit of fat or marbling, be sure to use a broil pan to protect the dripping fat from the exposed flame. In order to light the oven, turn the oven temperature gauge to the temperature you wish to cook at. Then press it in and release it. You'll hear it click for a couple of seconds, and once it stops clicking, that's the signal that the thermocouple has ignited. You can always open the oven and have a look in the left-hand side. There's ports in the bottom of the oven where you can actually see the blue flame. This oven preheats really quickly, only about 10 to 12 minutes. You'll find it actually quite easy to keep your Bertazzoni oven clean. The key, of course, is when you're roasting large cuts of meat, get them on that rack in the shallow pan. Moderate temperatures will help you cook the meat without too much fat rendering into the oven. You can always use higher temperatures at the end of the cooking for more browning. We use SOS pads on the inside of the oven door because we find it's the most effective and easiest way to keep it clean. To clean the oven itself, we use oven degreasers with warm soapy water, and we find that we're able to keep the oven in tip-top shape. Now that you have a little in-depth information about the great features of this Bertazzoni range, I wish you great success with your cooking. And remember, relationships take a little time to develop. So, cook lots of food, get to know Bertazzoni, and soon you will just love it.